Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
Could one woman's lawsuit actually bring down one of the most iconic shows in daytime TV? That's exactly what's at stake as Caroline Levit takes on The View with a massive $800 million defamation case. At first, the hosts brushed it off, like it was just another headline, another conservative drama. They mocked it, laughed it off, and even acted like it was just another attempt for attention. But now, the story is turning into something way bigger than they could have imagined. So how did this lawsuit go from being a joke to something that has ABC's entire legal department in full-blown crisis mode? Let's break it down. When Caroline Levit first dropped the bombshell lawsuit, the vibe on set at The View was cocky, straight-up smug. The hosts weren't just unbothered, they were laughing. Joy Behar, never one to hold back, rolled her eyes and dismissed the lawsuit like it was just another right-wing play for attention. "It's just another conservative playing the victim," she said. Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg, never shy about brushing off controversy, was equally dismissive. "Please," she scoffed, "we've dealt with worse. This will be forgotten in a week." But that line, it aged real fast. At the time, it seemed like the hosts were right. Major outlets like CNN and MSNBC picked up the story and called it baseless, nothing more than a publicity stunt. Legal analysts echoed the same talking points. Caroline Levit was just trying to intimidate the media and shut down free speech. Everything seemed to be going in The View's favor, but behind the scenes, a completely different story was starting to unfold. Rumors started swirling that this lawsuit wasn't just some baseless claim, it had real teeth. Caroline's legal team came out swinging, bringing forward explosive evidence and insider testimonies that could potentially rock ABC's world. Suddenly, the once dismissive hosts began to look a lot more careful with their words. Sources say there were whispers among legal circles that this case might actually stick, and it might even end up in court. ABC's legal team was on edge. The tone shifted, and the once smug, unbothered energy on set turned to something much more serious. And then, Whoopi? She's suspiciously quiet on the issue now, and the big question started to loom. Could this lawsuit really take down the View? That $800 million figure wasn't just a headline, it was enough to make anyone start watching what they said. The shift in tone was swift. What once seemed like a joke to the hosts now felt like a ticking time bomb. Word got out that ABC might actually settle with Caroline Levit, and that's when the chaos behind the scenes began. Whoopi Goldberg, the queen of the panel, exploded in a private meeting. "Are you kidding me? We're actually taking her seriously now?" she yelled, slamming her hand on the table. For Whoopi, this wasn't just about a lawsuit anymore. This was personal. She had weathered cancel culture, backlash, and online drama. But this felt like a betrayal. She couldn't believe ABC, the company she helped build, was even considering cutting a check to make the lawsuit go away. And then there was Joy Behar, the woman who had once mocked Caroline like she was. A joke now stormed into the dressing room, fuming. "We built this damn show!" she yelled, throwing her makeup bag onto the vanity. She was furious, not just about the lawsuit, but about how the network was bending the knee to Caroline. For Joy, it was a matter of loyalty. Caroline was a nobody, but now she was in a position to destroy everything they'd worked for. Sunny Hostin, the legal expert, was the first to grasp the full gravity of the situation. A former federal prosecutor, Sunny knew that this wasn't just a legal risk, it was a PR bloodbath waiting to happen. If the case went to trial, the courtroom wouldn't just be a battleground for legal arguments, it could expose the entire network skeletons. Emails, off-air conversations, production notes, everything was on the table, and Sunny wasn't taking it lightly. As the situation inside The View went from bad to worse, the hosts tried to play damage control live on TV. Gone was the cocky energy. Gone were the snarky comments. The public plea started to unfold right before the cameras. Whoopi, usually the boldest of the bunch, kicked off the segment with an uncomfortable sigh. "Look," she began slowly, her voice noticeably softer, "I think we all just need to take a step back here." It was as if she was trying to clean up weeks of mockery without actually admitting it. The damage? It was already done. Joy followed, up with a sudden change in tone, asking, "Can't we just sit down like adults and talk this out?" This wasn't the same Joy who had called the lawsuit ridiculous just weeks earlier. The audience saw it. A complete flip from mockery to desperation. Sunny, the once confident legal expert, was now pleading. "Caroline, if you're watching," she began softly. The moment was so tense it felt like even the producers were holding their breath. But the real question was anyone buying it? Behind the scenes, things were unraveling. Ratings started to slip, sponsors began pulling back, and the whispers from advertisers suggested they were looking for an exit strategy. Internally, ABC's legal team was in overdrive, reviewing every second of footage, combing through emails, and strategizing about what might be exposed in court. The network was stuck. One side wanted to go to court and prove they'd done nothing wrong, while the other side was terrified of what might come out if this case saw a courtroom. The execs were worried about private emails, internal conversations, and off the record, decisions becoming public knowledge. And now, the hosts were in panic mode. They were terrified that this legal battle could wipe out everything they'd built, and they didn't even fully understand how serious it had gotten. The trust among them started to crack. The public plea that followed was a desperate attempt to save face. The hosts were trying to walk back weeks of mockery with their "let's make peace" rhetoric. But it was too little, too late. Whoopi's voice was softer, more measured. Joy's nervous fidgeting was noticeable. Sunny? She wasn't smiling. It was clear that behind their words, the panic was palpable. But the audience? They weren't buying it. The internet immediately exploded, dissecting every word, every sigh. Comments flooded in, calling the plea nothing more than damage control, with one comment perfectly capturing the moment: "If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't be begging." By the time the public plea aired, the damage had already been done. The internet had torn apart the host's tone shift, and ABC's reputation was on the line. Ratings were tanking. The backlash was relentless, and Caroline wasn't backing. Down ABC was now in full-blown crisis mode. Lawyers were working overtime, and the network's image was teetering on the brink of disaster. If the lawsuit went to trial, everything they'd ever said about Caroline could be exposed for the world to see. So what's next? Will Caroline Levit's lawsuit really take down The View, or can ABC pull off the ultimate save and avoid a full-scale meltdown? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you're as hooked as we are, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest tea. This story is far from over, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. See you in the next one.